struggles, that as much as we may be represented in positions of whatever, are we then able to advance our struggles? Because remember, we are leading within a very challenging and cruel system that is called patriarchy. Patriarchy is everywhere. It's at its home, it's in the community, it's in religious, it's everywhere. It's even where we live, even where we are as members of parliament, as we are seated here in this committee. We know from our different political parties, we are challenged by that. So your presentation is also going to empower us so that we really understand when we, as women in our political parties, in our committees, when we raise in our constituents areas, when we are advancing these struggles, and when communities are then asking ourselves difficult questions, we are empowered by institutions of your nature. Because we also interact with trade unions. At some point, we are going to call the federations for them to tell us, give us a picture of women representation at the workplace and what are then the challenges. So having the Public Service Commission, it is also going to empower us. So today we're happy that you are here in this month, and to me, Women's Month, it's not only in August, it's 365 days, because every day, every minute, we are to ensure that we advance our struggles. Let us acknowledge these achievements while working to make gender parity across government, and we're going to make it a norm, but it must not be an exception. So it's important that we receive these presentations, and we are also empowering you, because it's not them and us in this presentation. We will ask questions. And those questions, please don't take them. At times they may be harsh. It's not that we are criticizing, but you are also have a responsibility to empower us. So us asking you questions, we are also opening up your eyes on some areas that you may have not taken them for granted, but you may have overlooked, or you may think that, okay, we'll deal them with at another time. Whereas to us, it's areas that we think they are to be dealt with now. So with those words, I'm welcoming you, Advocate, and your team. What we will then do now, we'll then make a presentation, introduction, and then after introduction, we will allow you to, as the leader, you will then introduce your team, and immediately after introduction, you will then make a presentation. My name is Lindelwa. My name is Dunjwa. I'm the chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus. The members will then introduce themselves. They know that. Over to you, members. Oh, sorry, before that, I am then with the committee secretary, Ms. Moy, and with the researcher. You'll pardon me, Princess. It's very difficult I'm still struggling to pronounce your surname. Our researcher, Princess, and our content advisor, Miss Capella. And anybody outside the Public Service Commission who has joined us in this meeting, you will also be requested to introduce yourselves. Over to you, honorable members, for the introduction.
Good morning, Chairperson and everybody who's here. It's Dr. Susan Tembekwayo, member of this steering committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Members that are here, I'm not going to say members.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to everyone that is on the line. I am Angel Kanyile. I am the member of this multi-party steering committee. Thank you so much.
I thought I saw who is here. I hope I Honorable Siete. Oh, okay. I've also got the secretary to the office of the chairperson, Ms. Isaacs. Thank you. Over to you, Doc. Advocate, I'm sorry for introduction.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members of the Multi-Party Caucus. I am Advocate Nelsie Puti, and I am the Public Service Commissioner for the Northwest Province. Accompanying me today, Honorable Chair, are Dr. Kulufelo Sidibe, our DDG for LMP, Leadership and Management Practices. Also accompanying us is Acting Director General, Carmen Domingo Swartz, who is responsible for monitoring and evaluation. We also joined by Ms. Nozipiwo Gwaza, who is also assisting as our Parliamentary Liaison Officer, amongst others. Chair, we are honored as females in the Public Service Commission, mandated by our chairperson, Professor Somadoda Figeni, to speak to members of the Multi-Party Caucus. And as I said, honored and privileged for an opportunity to speak to you as members of different parties on our observations as the Public Service Commission on women and women leadership. Chair, before I get into the presentation, I just like to say the following remarks. In the South African context, representativeness is a constitutional imperative. The Bill of Rights, specifically Section 9 in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, places emphasis on equality before the law. It also provides
for... Sorry, Advocate. Before that, can we request the Secretary to flag the agenda so that members accept it? Sorry for that.
Apologies, ma'am.
Ms. Moy, can you please? There is the agenda, honorable members. Are there any apologies? I have got it. I would like to apologize. The apologies from myself. If our meeting go at up to past 10, I will have a serious problem. Because at 11 o'clock, I've got an appointment, a doctor's appointment. I hope by 10:30, we will then be done. And then if then we are not by that time, I will then request Honorable Kanyile to close the meeting. But I'm sure at least by 10 o'clock or 10:15 will be done. In the absence of other apologies, can we get somebody to adopt our agenda? Members,
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable Kanyile.
I move for the adoption of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get a seconder?
I move for the secondment of the agenda, Chair.
Who is that one?
It's Honorable Siade.
Oh, welcome. Thank you very much. Honorable Siade. Welcome. Over to you, Advocate. Thank you very much, honorable members. Advocate, over to you, and sorry for the disturbance.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. As I was saying, the Bill of Rights, specifically Section 9, in Chapter 2 of the Constitution, places emphasis on equality before the law. It prohibits unfair discrimination on the basis of, amongst others, gender and other arbitrary factors, and provides for measures, which is equity and affirmative action, to address the imbalances of the past. Chapter 9 further establishes the Commission for Gender Equality to promote respect for and promote the attainment of gender equality in South Africa. In Chapter 10 of the Constitution, specifically Section 1951, requires that public administration must be broadly representative of the South African people and that employment and personnel management practices must address historical inequalities. From these constitutional provisions, honorable members, and the legislation, frameworks, and other measures that have been put in place, as will be explained in our presentation, these were put in place to realize the spirit and objects of the Constitution. Some of these measures included the setting of numerical targets, provision of training opportunities, development of sector and institution-specific policies, monitoring and reporting systems so that we could track progress on all these. Notable progress has been recorded over the years, despite some serious setbacks occasioned by various internal and external factors and the sheer challenge of changing systemic and cultural and religious practices. Whilst we acknowledge progress and the challenges, it is important because the real intent of the Constitution transcends beyond numeric targets but seeks to emancipate, empower, and improve the lives of all women, young and old, in the country. By all means, the realization of women's empowerment should not be construed as an agenda for or justification for the disempowerment of men, because if all things are good and equal, and starting from respect for the rule of law, a thriving economy and employment opportunities, respect for life and responsible social relations, both men and women should be empowered equally. The pursuit for the representation of women in leadership positions in the public service, and specifically in the public sector and other sectors, is and will remain a priority until statistically and substantive representations are realized and demonstrated in our workplaces through daily practices, thoughts, and decisions. The issue will remain a priority until we are certain that the women who are in leadership positions and in the other spaces, number one, are representing all women in the society, that they are actively improving on the prescripts and programs put in place to realize the provisions of the Constitution, that they are influencing policy shift amongst the clusters, the spheres, sectors where women should be represented, that they are actively advancing the empowerment of other women at work, in their homes, in communities, and in other settings in line with our laws, ethical standards, and codes of good practice. Therefore, we must not be discouraged by informed or ill-informed questions or criticisms. Rather, we must use such questions and criticisms, as Chair has pointed out, that there will be questions, some of them very uncomfortable but necessary, but they will help us and the public sector to refine our plans and exert more effort in implementing our program. Chair, we also recognize and are honored that there are women like yourselves who form part of the multi-party caucus who speak and highlight women's issues. And it is important that as a PSC that we engage with the multi-party caucus, but also portfolio committees where these things are spoken about, uncomfortable as sometimes they may be, but necessary if we are to make headway in the representation of women in meaningful structures, Chair. I just thought, Chair, to make those open remarks before we get into the presentation, to acknowledge also the fact that it is not easy as women, and I think members will attest to that. It is not easy spearheading women issues when there are so many men in many positions who always want to tell us how fragile we are, how unaccommodative we are, that they say that we complain, they say that we do not want to take up opportunities, but we recognize all these for what they are. One, sometimes they are fear of women taking up their rightful positions, but secondly, women are setting themselves in a manner that says we refuse to be taken for granted. So we're going to present to you, Honorable Chair and members of the Multi-Party Caucus, on women in leadership positions within the public service. Ms. Moy, if you have a copy of our presentation, I'd appreciate it if you could flag it for us. And I'm hoping that it has been shared with members so that they're able to can follow on the presentation. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm going to move on to, I'm not so sure if I can. Okay. So, Chair, the outline of our presentation, we speak to the purpose of women leadership matters. We'll present progress since democracy. We'll also present on the current status of women representation in leadership. We'll do an analysis of women in the senior management service, departmental performance and emerging trends. We will speak on the PSC's assessment, make recommendations, conclusions, and we'll take questions from members of the Honorable Caucus. The purpose of the briefing, Honorable Chair and members, is we appreciate the opportunity to engage with the Multi-Party Women's Caucus on important issues of women representation in leadership positions within the public service. The advancement of women in leadership is not only a constitutional requirement, but is important because South Africa has laws in place that speak to the transformation of women. And since the advent of democracy, we need to measure how far we have come. This briefing, therefore, seeks to present the current status of women representation within the Senior Management Service, or SMS, to assess progress made towards achieving the 50% target that has been set for women in leadership positions, to highlight areas where significant progress has been made, to identify persistent barriers and challenges affecting women's advancement, but also to propose measures to strengthen suitable gender transformation within public service. The question, Chair, before us is no longer whether women belong in leadership positions. Rather, it is whether our institutions are creating the conditions necessary for women to thrive, to influence decision-making and lead at the highest levels of government. Our mandate as the PSC is established by Section 195 and Section 196 of the Constitution, and they put us as an independent institution which is responsible for promoting and safeguarding excellence in the public administration. Amongst others, our oversight includes recruitment and selection practices within the public service, human resource management and development, personnel administration practices, compliance and constitutional values and principles, representativity and transformation within the public service. So the issue of women's representation in leadership is directly linked to the constitutional requirement that public administration must be broadly representative of the South African people. This is contained in Section 195 in the principle on public administration must be broadly representative of the South African people, with employment and personnel management practices based on ability, objectivity, fairness, and the need to redress the imbalances of the past to achieve board representation. So it is not negotiable as it is contained in the Constitution. South Africa's commitment to gender equality is embedded in our constitution and legislative frameworks that have been passed by Parliament. Section 9 of the Constitution guarantees equality and prohibits unfair discrimination based on gender and or sex. Section 1951I further requires that public administration must be broadly representative of the South African people, as I've just read out. These constitutional provisions are supported by the Employment Equity Act, by public service regulation that are linked to the Public Service Act, the Strategic Framework for Gender Equality in the Public Service, and Cabinet's decision in 2005 establishing a target of 50% of representation of women at all levels of senior management service. All these measures, Chair and members, are collectively meant to recognize that meaningful transformation requires deliberate interventions rather than passive change. International and regional commitments. South Africa's commitment to advancing women in leadership is reinforced by several international and regional instruments. These include our affiliation to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, the African Union Solemn Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa, and the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development. All these instruments recognize that the full participation of women in leadership and decision-making is essential for sustainable development, democratic governance, and inclusive growth. South Africa's efforts to advance women within the public service therefore forms part of a broader continental and global commitment to gender equality. Why women leadership matters? Honorable Chair, the advancement of women into leadership positions is not merely a matter of representation. And as Chair has said in her opening remarks, it is also the struggle for transformation of our society. Evidence from the United Nations, the OECD, the World Bank, and African Union, this demonstrates that diverse leadership teams contribute to the following: better decision-making, improved governance outcomes, greater innovation, enhanced institutional accountability, and more inclusive public policies, as well as improved responsiveness to citizens' needs. Research increasingly shows that organizations that embrace diversity in leadership are often more resilient, adaptive, and responsive to complex challenges. For the public service, women's leadership contributes directly to building a capable, ethical, and development-oriented institution. Representative leadership enhances both legitimacy and performance in the institutions where this is practiced. Our progress since democracy, Honorable Chair, one of the most significant achievements of our democratic South Africa has been the transformation of the public service. Prior to 1994, women were significantly underrepresented in leadership and decision-making positions within government institutions. Over the past 3 decades, there have been policy interventions that have substantially contributed to progress that we're going to talk about today. These interventions include the employment equity measures, targeted recruitment initiatives, leadership development programs, gender mainstreaming strategies, succession planning initiatives in departments to ensure that we retain the women that have been recruited into these positions, but also attract new talent into the Public Service Commission. The public service today reflects a markedly different leadership profile compared to the early years of our democracy. However, transformation remains a journey rather than a destination. We still have a long way to go. While substantial gains have been achieved, the challenge now lies in consolidating and sustaining the progress that we have registered. The current status of women in senior management service. Data extracted from PESAL, and this is as at the 31st of December 2025, demonstrates that women now constitute approximately half of senior management service across national departments. This reflects considerable progress towards government's target of 50% representation. Importantly, the data suggests that gender parity is becoming increasingly institutionalized with many parts amongst the public service. However, aggregate national figures can conceal important differences between departments. So if we were to take the number as I would say we are at 50%, but our presentation will show that there are departments that are significantly lower than the 50%, and they still have a long way to go. A closer examination reveals substantial variation in performance across various institutions, and these variations provide valuable insight into where progress has been achieved and where further intervention is required and attention must be given. So, Chair, on this next slide, which speaks to departments with less than 50%, members will see that at the bottom, we've got electricity and energy at 32%, higher education and training at 34%, rural reform and development at 37%, public works and infrastructure, police at 40%, independent police investigative directorate together with mineral resources and petroleum at 41%, basic education at 43%, Home Affairs at 45%, communication and digital technologies at 45%, together with transport, Statistics SA at 47%, social development at 48%, together with tourism, justice and constitutional development, water and sanitation, public service and administration, employment and labor, the presidency, and we then have correctional services moving on to 49%, together with agriculture and Office of the Public Service Commission, and the Department of Health. I need to hasten to say to members, the Public Service Commission is at 49% due to resignations and attrition, which is people that went on retirement at the end of December of 2025. Departments that have shown significant progress and above 50% of females at SMS level. At 50%, you've got 4 departments coming in, which are National Treasury, the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, Military Veterans and International Relations and Cooperation. 2 departments at 51%, which is Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. At 52%, we've got 5 departments. These are Cooperative Governance, Traditional Affairs, Small Business Development, National School of Government, and the Office of the Chief Justice, with South Africa having made a remarkable appointment in having the first female Chief Justice when they appointed Justice Maya. And we at 53% have 2 departments, which are Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, a Civilian Secretariat for the Police Service, and at 55% the Department of Science and Innovation, at 56% Trade, Industry and Competition, 57% Human Settlements, at 60% the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, and 61% topping the table is the Department of Government Communications and Information Systems. The analysis of departments below target, Honorable Chair, the department's electricity and energy at 32.2%, higher education and training at 34.1%, land reform and rural development at 36.9%, which could be translated to 37%, public works and infrastructure at 40%, and the police at 40%. We're saying 23 of these national departments, they remain below the 50% mark, with the lowest performing being the departments that I've just mentioned. A clear pattern emerges herein. The departments with the lowest levels of female representation, members would notice, are predominantly concentrated in technical sectors, electricity and energy, higher education and training, land reform. So you're talking people that require engineering, environment, security, law enforcement, so they have not been able to transform as they should. These sectors have historically experienced lower female participation rates, which continue to influence leadership demographics today. The data suggests therefore that barriers are not evenly distributed across departments. Rather, certain sectors continue to face deeper structural challenges in achieving gender parity, but we're hoping that they will continue to transform and make progress. The analysis of departments achieving above the target of 50%, Honorable Chair, 18 departments have achieved or exceeded the 50% target. Notable examples include GCIS at 61%, Sports, Arts and Culture at 60%, Human Settlement at 58%, Trade, Industry and Competition at 56%, and Science and Innovation at 55%. Herein again, a clear pattern emerges, honorable members. The departments with the lowest levels of female representation are predominantly concentrated in technical sectors, infrastructure related, engineering, environments, and security and law enforcement. These departments continue to demonstrate that gender parity is achievable. Their performance suggests that organizational commitments, leadership support, succession planning, and deliberate recruitment strategies can produce meaningful results. These departments should be viewed as examples of what can happen and what good practices from these departments that other departments can learn from. What this data means for all of us, it represents both encouraging signs and important warnings for the public sector. Encouraging signs say that South Africa has largely achieved near parity at the aggregate SMS level. We are not where we are supposed to be. Most departments fall within a relatively narrow range around the 50% mark, which means their targeted recruitments in the next couple of months should see them where they've got vacancies reaching their 50% target. Transformation efforts have yielded measurable results. We also need to mention, Chair, that the number of women in leadership positions is not a favor, nor does it mean that women that are below par have been appointed. All it means is that there's been measurable and significant concentration on ensuring that we recruit the right people in the right positions for them to represent the public service properly. Areas of concern: significant disparities remain between departments. We saw those at 34% and others at 61%. We've got 5 departments that are below the 40% mark. Progress appears uneven across sectors. Gains remain vulnerable if succession planning is not threatened. Chances are, if there is no proper succession planning, honorable members, the private sector is also on hand to recruit from within the public service. So we identify women, we train them, they get into powerful positions, and the private sector comes and offers them more money, and they leaving the department again below the targeted numbers that we want women to be at in the public sector. Key insights: the challenge is no longer access alone into the public service. Challenge is ensuring that women are equitably represented across all sectors and leadership streams of government, but also making sure that we can retain them. Emerging challenges: while representation has improved, several challenges continue to remain. These include, but are not limited to, occupational segregation, uneven representation across sectors, limited female pipelines in technical provisions. So we're seeing women unable to penetrate into some of these sectors that are male dominated, and this leads to discouragement and women seeking employment elsewhere in the private sector. Institutional challenges: there aren't effective succession planning, so the gaps highlight where our shortfalls are, and even mentoring opportunities. Some women are finding it difficult to find mentors who can help them transcend the challenges that they find in their sector so that they can move on to the next level of their careers. There's also leadership retention challenges, as I've mentioned. Not only are we struggling with the numbers within the public sector itself, with women moving from department to department, but also challenges faced by the private sector that keeps poaching from the public service when they want women representation. Cultural challenges: there are persistent gender stereotypes. There are men that still believe that women belong in certain positions, but there are also those that are gatekeeping and making sure that women do not advance into positions. There are perceptions regarding leadership suitability. As I said when I began, Honorable Chair, men believe that we complain a lot, that we take time off to go on maternity leave, that when we are in certain positions we're emotional, and all some of these men see these in movies and believe that it is real, and we are saying that it is not. We appreciate the fact that yes, being in a leadership position is challenging, requires long hours, which means our families also get to suffer, but we have taken the mantle and said we are prepared to do this and we are suitable to be in leadership positions. There are also workplace cultures that may impede advancement, but we are not letting these encourage women from getting into the positions that they are fit for. Honorable Chair, numerical representation alone should not be viewed as the end goal of our mission of having women in leadership positions. The ultimate objective must be meaningful participation, influence, and leadership impact in the positions in which we place these women. Our overall assessment: we have assessed that South Africa has made substantial progress in advancing women into leadership positions within the public service. Progress reflects the positive impact of constitutional values, legislative reforms, and deliberate transformation interventions. However, 3 important observations have emerged. 1, transformation remains uneven across departments, not only at national level, but also at provinces. And herein we are presenting only on the national departments. Historical patterns continue to influence representation within certain sectors. Thirdly, the sustainability of progress will depend on strengthening leadership pipelines and succession planning in these departments. The next phase of transformation, therefore, should focus on consolidation of the gains that we have made, sustainability, and institutionalization of gender representation. In conclusion, Chair, the story of women's representation in the public service is ultimately a story of transformation, as you so rightly said at the beginning. Over 3 decades of democracy, South Africa has made significant progress in opening leadership opportunities to women. The achievement of near gender parity at SMS level reflects both political commitment and sustained institutional efforts. The data also reminds us that transformation is not complete. We are far from reaching the targets that we require. Yes, Cabinet has put us at 50%, but we also recognize that we could go beyond the 50% because women are more than males in our society. The task ahead is to ensure that every department, regardless of sector, reflects the constitutional values of equality, fairness, and representation. The advancement of women in leadership is not merely a transformative agenda, and it is fundamental to building a capable, ethical, professional, developmental state that is responsive to the needs and aspirations of all South Africans as is set out in Section 195 of the Constitution. In conclusion, Further Chair, the underrepresentation of women in leadership positions within the public service remains a critical challenge to us achieving gender equality at SMS level. The persistent imbalance underscores gaps in the effective implementation of transformation initiatives and policies as have been passed by Parliament. To attain national targets and realize meaningful transformation, it is imperative that we be more robust, more targeted, and ensure sustained interventions are implemented to facilitate and accelerate the advancement of women into leadership roles. Having female leaders in positions of influence to serve as role models is not only career advancement of women, but stands to generate broader societal impact. But further, the public service has largely demonstrated that gender parity is achievable. The challenge before us now is to ensure that this parity is sustained, it is deepened, it is translated into meaningful leadership influence across the whole of government. Chair, in putting together this presentation, we looked at these sources of reference: the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, the Employment Equity Act, Act 55 of 1998, the Public Service Regulations of 2016, the Department of Service and Administration Strategic Framework for Gender Equality within the Public Service. We also made reference to the Cabinet Memorandum 86A of 2005. We looked at personal data effective 31st December 2025, from which we extracted these numbers. The United Nations Women in Leadership reports, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Gender Equality in Public Administration and reports, the African Union Solemn Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa, the Southern African Development Community Protocol on Gender and Development, and the National Development Plan 2030. I take it that the multi-party caucuses researchers would find a benefit in going through these to strengthen the engagement of the caucus. Honorable Chair and members, the current PSC commissioners, as members will be aware, there are 5 national commissioners that are normally recommended by the National Assembly. These in this paragraph include our chairperson, Professor Somadoda Fikeni, our deputy chairperson, Dr. Zukiswa Mkolomba, Professor Mandla Makanya, Ms. Nancy Ngwenya, as well as Mr. Errol Magaman. And there are 9 provisional commissioners that are nominated by the Premier of each province on the recommendation of provincial legislatures. In March of 2026, for the first time, the Commission had a full membership of commissioners. And this was the first time in 8 years that we had a full complement of commissioners. We have since lost 1 commissioner whose term ended on the 1st of June 2026, and that is the Commissioner for Limpopo, Mr. Magerule Sekonyana was the commissioner. The other 8 commissioners that are remaining for provinces is Advocate Ashley Steele for the Western Cape, Mr. Vusumusi Mavuso from Gauteng, Commissioner Yasmin Bakas from KZN, Commissioner Anele Kloia from the Northern Cape, Commissioner Becky Zulu for Mpumalanga, Commissioner Vuyani Mapolisa for the Eastern Cape, Commissioner Professor Nakedi for Free State, and myself, Advocate Nelsie Puti for the Northwest Province. Our leadership from the management side, the acting DDG for the Public Service Commission is Ms. Irene Matenja. Her substantive role is that of the Deputy Director General for MNE. Our former DG is now the Deputy Public Protector, and she left us on the 1st of March. And we have Miss Irene Matenjo acting. Our leadership and management practices is led by Dr. Kulufelo Sidibe. Our integrity and anti-corruption unit is headed by Mr. Matume Malachi and Ms. Carmen Domingo Swart, whose substantive role is that of Chief Director Monitoring and Evaluation. She's the acting DDG for Monitoring and Evaluation. Our CFO is Ms. Zweli Momeka, who with his team has ensured that the Public Service Commission 6 years running has received a clean audit. For our stakeholder and executive support, we are supported by Ms. Siasanga Giose, and our acting Chief Director for People Management Practices is Ms. Amanda Vaibuom. Members of the public reach the Public Service Commission through the National Office, which is situated at Francis Bard Street in Arcadia. People can lodge their complaints at opsc.gov.za or lodge their grievances at opsc.gov.za. They can also reach us on the National Anti-Corruption Hotline at opsc.gov.za or use the toll-free number, the 0800-701-70 number. For any inquiries, they can find us at info@opsc.gov.za. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and members, and this is where my presentation ends.
Thank you very much, Advocate. Thank you very much. I will now open up for questions from honorable members, comments, and clarities. Over to you, members.
Chair, my hand is up. I'm not sure if you can see it or you want to wait for everyone to raise their hands.
Represent.
Honorable members, the chairperson, I think she has lost network. She has asked me to co-chair later, but if she's not available, can I ask you, Honorable Tanjagwayo, to go through? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have a lot of questions, but I would...
Sorry, members, I've muted myself. My apologies. Okay. You can start, Honorable Thembekwayo, then it will be Honorable Kanyile, and then Honorable Siet. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I just would like to ask, it's not a lot of questions that I would like to ask, but I'm going to concentrate on the first one, which pertains to the effectiveness and the flexibility of the work policies, the flexible hours, including nowadays we talk about hybrid arrangements, including the parental leave policies, how policies accessible, how will it implicitly apply it in your department. And there is always harassment that takes place in different departments or in different workplaces. what clear independent mechanisms exist for reporting gender-based discrimination or sexual harassment, and what is the rate of the resolution to this matter? When it comes to hiring and promotion panels, how balanced are they? Are the selection panels required to have gender diverse representation, and are blind recruitment processes utilized? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Honorable Kanyile.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I have been partially covered by Honorable Tenjagwayo on some of the questions that she asked. However, what I would like to find out from the PSC is with regard to issues of women, that's a low number of women that are employed in various departments. The departments that I just remember now, I think it says higher education, public works, and others. I'd like to find out what have they done to reach out to those departments and highlight the issues that they are raising here with us. And secondly, she has indicated that we still need to reach the target nationally of ensuring that women, they also employed in leadership positions, because we still have a low number in leadership positions, especially of female or women employees. I'd like to find out, I think it would give us comfort if their presentation can indicate that as a PSC, this is what they have done in trying to ensure that these issues are addressed, because I am more concerned about the fact that every other day when we have presentations, we are being told about where women are being misplaced, where women are being abused, women are still not employed, but you do not see what those departments they have done in trying to address this, because we are more than 32 years into democracy. I think by now we should be making the loudest noise. We should be saying, I have knocked to that door, I have met with them, this is the submission or the recommendations that I have sent to them and they have ignored. Because when I look at these departments, Chairperson, these are departments that are within Parliament, and we are in a position to be able to call them to come and present and address these issues. But also, it would be better if we can get from the PSC the steps that they have taken to address these issues. I think that is more important more than anything else. Next week, we are going for the Women's Parliament in Kimberley. These are the same things that are going to be coming up from lots and lots of women, that they feel underrepresented, they feel that their voices are not being heard, and so on and so forth. But with each and every institution that is picking up on these issues, what have they done? Because I think it's important for them to have something that they have started, an initiative that they have started, so that as a multi-party Women's Caucus Steering Committee, together with the caucus as a whole, we are able to follow up on the submissions that they would have made, if any. But I think I can truly appreciate it, Chairperson, if we can be finished with the details of actions that have been taken by the PSC to address these issues, because talking about them is not enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Kanyile. Honorable Sete.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to officials from the PSC, honorable members, and everybody on the platform. So I have been partly covered by members of the committee, but I'm just left with one question. I just wanted to ask from the stats that was presented, I did not see where the legislative arms of the country is. For instance, your provincial legislatures, local municipal councils, the NCOPs, and even us in the National Assembly. So I'm not sure, maybe that falls within some department, or because I saw also the presidency is also there. So I just wanted to get clarity on whether the PSC does that numerical, stats and collects it, or how does it work? Because we need to, before we do advocacy work externally, we start internally, and I find that very, very important. And lastly, I think it's very, very critical that we get an understanding of what happens, what are consequence management plannings and models in place, because advocacy is not about just us talking on the month of Women, August, but is also about putting to test and piloting systems in place that will mitigate against these injustices against women. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. From my side, in appreciating this presentation and finding it, I'm finding it a bit strange that basic education is not topping up the list in terms of women representation and health. I will tell you why. It's because it's where you will find it has been a norm even prior 1994, that these are the sectors where majority of women are concentrated. Remember, the system before 1994 had to ensure that it's either we become nurses, we become in health in terms of nurses, doctors very few in terms of race, and the other one will then be education. I don't know whether I missed it or you missed that. The Auditor General's office, remember, that is the first time in the history of this country that we have got an Auditor General that is a female. But what is the picture in terms of that office? I would really appreciate to have that. I think Honorable said the last question, that what is then happening in the legislative arm of the and judiciary for that matter. If we have missed that, please you reflect on that in terms of questions. Other comments that if I will do manage to finish before the time that I will leave, I will make some remarks and proposals in terms of the way forward for you to prepare for the because it's not going to be the last time that we call you in this term of ours as the Multi-Party Women's Caucus. I'll then hand over to you, Advocate. How you respond, who responds, it lies on you, as long as it is not going to be again a presentation, but a response to the questions that have been asked in comments. Thank you very much. Over to you, Advocate.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. I am going to ask members of senior management to also assist. But just to set a picture for members, we had an engagement with the Public Service Department of Public Service and Administration a week ago in the Northwest, and they were presenting their figures at the 31st of March. You would recall that we drew our statistics as of the 31st of December 2025. And the national picture looks like this. KZN women representation is at 49%. Eastern Cape is at 49.25%. Gauteng is at 47.44%. The Western Cape is at 47.18%. And the National Department, which is the DPSA, is at 46.29. Mpumalanga is at 44.87. Limpopo is at 43.52% share. Northwest 42.81. Northern Cape 39.4. And Free State is at 39.03%. I'm just saying these figures as a prelude to some of the questions that have been asked, that even nationally, our picture is not looking as rosy as it should as regards women representation. So there's still a lot of way to go. I'm going to ask Dr. Khulufelo Sidibe to respond to some of the issues that have been asked by honorable members, and where there are still some questions that are left, I will come in, Honorable Chair, with your permission. Thank you very much. Dr. Sidibe?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sipoti. Good morning, honorable members. Let me be brief and to the point, starting with the questions by Honorable Dunjwa. The judiciary, if you check the slides, it will indicate that the Office of the Chief Justice is standing at 52%. This is where the judiciary arm is located in terms of our statistics. We report on it because the OCJ is currently listed as a department under the Public Service Act. The Department of Health, the statistics we provide, these are for national office employees, the majority of which are office-based, not the health practitioners who are necessarily in the hospitals. Those practitioners fall under the provincial departments of health. So that would be the reason why a sense is that these departments have predominantly large numbers of female employees, and yet they have not reached the numbers. But yes, even at the policy level of the National Department of Health, they have not necessarily attained those percentages. They still have quite a number of male, but 49% is a good achievement. We had a discussion with the Minister of Health 2 months back to engage with them about a number of indicators in the department, and the issue of female representativity was also one of the issues that was raised, and we want to believe that as they embark on recruitment and selection, they will try to address these issues. One of the things that the minister said is that due to budget constraints, they have a huge number of vacancies that they are not able to fill, even when some of their specialists go on retirement, and they have a lot of people who are acting. That is one of the reasons. And then basic education, again, our statistics, they refer to employees who are at the National Department of Basic Education, and this do not include the large numbers of employees who are in provincial departments of education, predominantly the educators. The provincial departments of education, the stats would be captured in terms of what Commissioner Sipoti has reported. But yes, our presentation does not necessarily give those disaggregations. We can obtain the DPSA presentation and share it with the members to see which departments are driving the stats in the provinces, because aggregate figures that were reported by Commissioner Sipoti, they are lumping up different provincial departments. So that would be the reason why it's a small group number of employees that we are referring to, but not the provincial arms, which is where the majority are located. And if we can go to the questions by Honorable Kanyile, the issue of women pipeline. Our presentation makes reference to the fact that there are challenges with pipeline management, and these would be our middle managers who are then eligible for application and promotion into the senior management service. We have been engaging with the DPSA on this issue because, yes, our representation in the middle management level is still less than 45% women, and yet the majority of employees in the public service are women, but these are located largely in lower levels. But there are programs that are currently being implemented, middle management development, senior management development Development in collaboration with the National School of Government. But we also indicate that there is a caution. Our recruitment and selection processes also prohibits any forms of discriminatory practices. Yes, affirmative action can be implemented, but in the event that in a recruitment and selection process, a person with the requisite technical competences is not found, the employer is duty bound to employ the person who is deemed to be most suitable. The only time that we are able to really say we are going for a woman, it's if the woman was deemed to be technically competent. Even if they are not number one, they might be recommended as number 2, 3, or 4. Then in terms of affirmative action and employment equity, we are then able to recommend the appointment of the woman because they are deemed to be technically suitable. But if they do not make it into those categories, the courts have held that an employer cannot re-advertise a post repeatedly in an attempt to secure an employee from a targeted group at the expense of having a negative impact on service delivery. So departments are juggling with all of those challenges. But yes, there are intervention programs that are driven by the DPSA and the National School of Government. And whilst we are on that issue, I just want to indicate as well that we have had an engagement with the National School of Government, not just on issues of representation, but looking at a range of indicators within the public service. And there was a follow-up engagement with them again last week. So as PSC, we really go the extra mile to engaging with all departments, not just on issues of representativity at the senior management level, but on issues of service delivery, performance, and so forth. We call those the departmental profile engagements, and we have a robust engagement program on that. But I think we can still improve in terms of how we deal with these issues. But members, it's important to note that the Department of Social Development, all national and provincial departments report to the Department of Social Development. There is a steering committee that is coordinated by DSD, where issues of representativity, issues of procurement, that is pro-women companies and so forth, are addressed, and DSD is the one that is running a lot of these programs, and I think they can also be in a position to provide useful information to the committee based on their overall responsibility. And I will quickly go to the issue of the representation in legislatures, local government, and other organs of the state. Members, we do not have access to this data because our mandate does not extend to legislatures and local government and other organs of the state at this present point. But there is a Commission for Employment Equity, which is located within the Department of Employment and Labor, and this is a commission that monitors issues of employment equity within the public service, local government, other organs of the state, including the private sector. And we have some engagements with this commission when we are dealing with issues of representativity within the public service, but they have the information across all sectors and organs of the state. I am not in a position to speak on their latest performance stats, but I think our last engagement with them in 2024, 2025, it was clear that the less than 50% representation that we are seeing in the public service is still much higher than that of other sectors, especially when we are looking at local government and the private sector. During those engagements, we did not look at information from the legislatures, but they have the mandate to look into issues of representativity even within the legislatures. Whether they have been obtaining the data or receiving cooperation to access that data, we are not in a position to indicate that. And then my last input would be around questions raised by Honorable Member Dr. Thembekwayo. the effectiveness and flexibility of our policies, hybrid parental leave policies. All of these measures, members within the public service, are highly regulated and they are informed by the constitutional provisions, ILO conventions, and so forth. And to the best of our knowledge, the leave that is pertaining to women, adoption, maternity, and all of those, they have been revised to be in line with the conventions that we have signed. But yes, honestly, we are not like countries such as Sweden and Switzerland, where women are allowed to go on maternity for 6 months or 12 months. We are still very much restricted to our 4 months within the public service of fully paid leave, and if the employee requires additional time, they can then convert their annual leave to extend the period to 5 or 6 months. And then beyond that, I think all other forms of leave are applicable to all different types of employees. Then hybrid management policies, it's not highly regulated. Currently, we don't have the prescript, but heads of departments are allowed to put in place policies that would accommodate the different types of needs of their employees, not just women, but also including employees who might find themselves terminally ill at a particular point, that their work environment has to be adjusted. That level of flexibility to a greater degree is the responsibility of the HOD, but it needs to take into account the broader leave policy framework and the resolutions that are agreed with the bargaining councils. And then in terms of harassment, from where we are sitting as the Public Service Commission, we have not received a lot of complaints and grievances around issues of harassment. Yes, there have been few of those, especially relating to women and where power relations are in place, and they are resolved in line with our grievance and complaints management processes to the best of our knowledge. The resolution mechanisms are effective in instances where there is proof. We are able to make recommendations to shift employees around as part of protecting them, and so forth. So we deal with those matters in a very, very sensitive way. There have been few instances where we have referred certain matters to the Commission for Gender Equality because we found the issues to be quite complex, and we did not necessarily have the technical expertise to delve into the depth of those cases, and then we would refer them to the Commission for Gender Equity, and they would be the ones who deal with those issues. So from where we are sitting, we believe that there is quite a large number of measures put in place. As PSC, especially around the issues of harassment, we have been working very closely with the DPSA and the Department of Employment and Labor, who is the custodian of the harassment code, to run a lot of advocacy workshops on issues of harassment, how to prevent it, how to manage it. But we also do a lot of department-specific engagements if we detect issues or we receive requests from heads of departments. But I think the requests have substantially gone down. And we want to believe that it is as a result of all the advocacies that we were able to do with these departments in the past 3 years. But harassment remains one of those issues that we deal with. I think I will stop at that, Commissioner Nkameni.
And thank you very much, Dr. Sidibe. Honorable Member Temeko also asked on hiring panel and whether these are diverse. Honorable members would remember that panels are set up by members of the executive in their respective departments. We try as much as possible as the Public Service Commission to ensure that CDP that speaks on representation is always at the top of mind. We speak at provinces as provincial commissioners with departments on ensuring that there is representativity. One interesting thing, honorable members, that we're finding also is that even when there are female panel members, they recommend men. which is something that we need to look at even when we speak to these departments, that there are panels that are headed by females who would go out of their way to represent, to advocate for male candidates as opposed to female candidates. But yeah, as I said, with the CDP on representativity, not only do we look at gender, but we also look at people with disabilities, we look at race, we also look at youth that need to be represented. The statistics and or the requirements for all departments are that women should be at 50%, young people at 30%, and people with disabilities at 4%. Currently, we are not even meeting those targets as a country, and we try as much as is possible to intervene and make sure that where there are vacancies, they prioritize these. The public service further goes and evaluates performance agreements of heads of departments to ensure that these numbers are in the performance agreements so that they can answer to their respective legislatures. So when we do our reports to the legislatures and report, they should be in line with what the director generals of provinces need to report on in their respective legislatures to ensure that we meet the numbers that we require. As members have said, it is not a numbers game. We're not only talking numbers just to tick a box. We're looking for meaningful intervention where women are recognized for the skills that they have, the education that they've attained, but also the impact that they can make in the public service. And we pride ourselves on the fact that we do not take people based on the fact that they're just female and have no substance whatsoever. The hiring panels are also required to ensure that when they select a candidate, they select the best candidate, and not only because the candidate is female. As Dr. Sidibe had said, we had not gone into other sectors, but I think if the committee wants us to go back and engage with the DPSA to get to the other statistics that members can use when they speak to portfolio committees, we'd be happy to do that for the caucus to ensure that you have full information that you could use when you interact with the departments to get to the bottom of why they're not meeting their numbers, and all those that are hitting their numbers, what lessons can they share to make sure that we meet our targets of 50% for women in all departments and all sectors. The Public Service Commission's mandate, as per the Public Service Bill, once the President has assented to the bill, Honorable Chair, would stretch to public entities and enterprises and municipalities. And we will then start collating information with those sectors as soon as we are able to start engaging with the respective sectors. And we recognize that the challenges are going to be huge, considering that especially in the private sector, majority of our CEOs would be male, and advocating for female CEOs is going to take a long time for us to get to that. But that's another chapter for some other day. The Public Service Commission has also put together a panel of experts, honorable member, to for recruitment of heads of departments, for municipal managers and other executives. We currently piloting and speaking to stakeholders on the panel of experts, which can be found on our website. The researchers can go in to extract from members what we're talking about, but we're trying to encourage people to volunteer and come on as experts that we can use on recruitment panels, so that we end up with recruiting the right people for all of our sectors, people with technical expertise that can help us also look at the numbers that we're looking for females that currently we may be missing as a result of the fact that they recruitment panels may not be set up to look at technical issues that these experts would look at. But that's something that we can report at a later stage, because we envisage that the panel of experts would be used in 2027, but we're engaging with all departments. Yesterday, we're engaging with the national departments, and we've already engaged with provinces. We'll be going to other sectors, universities, and institutions of higher learning to speak on this panel of experts. And if members of the multi-party caucus also know of experts who can assist the public service in recruitment, we would encourage them to look at our website on the Public Service Commission and register as panel members so that they can be selected by departments once the panel is up and running. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I hope we've answered all of the questions that the members had posed.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Thembekwayo, is that a legacy hand? Honorable Thembekwayo? Oh, it's a legacy hand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, thank you very much, Advocate. You know, it's quite challenging that what we think. Let me talk about myself. What I thought it's happening in the political space, in terms of political parties, that women, as much as we are the majority in a particular political organization, but when we are to elect leaders, it will be women that are electing men. Now, even if then, I find it very strange that is also happening in the space where panel members they are women, but it will still be women that are then they feel they must appoint a female. And I always raise this, that as much as I'm a gender activist, but there are areas where it must not be a woman for the sake of a woman. It must be a woman, one who has got the expertise, and yeah. So I think we are still in a patriarchy. Is very. I once said it's an animal that is very difficult to kill, but it has to be killed because it's something that is quite challenging. When it starts in our homes, we have got really a number of issues. When you come back, I would appreciate if you will also reflect that how many of workers in a workplace, or before that, let me rephrase, do you have an outreach program which then is, if you have, where you make workers aware that there is a commission of this nature where they have got challenges? I do understand that in legislatures, for an example, there are people that are referred to the Public Service Commission if there is something wrong that they have done. But are workers encouraged or empowered to understand that there is this a commission and its mandate is of this nature? Two, as much as you said you have been having some interaction with the employment equity, which is in terms of the employment and labor, because in their presentation at some time, I think it was last year, where I attended their meeting, it's women are more in the lower levels of workplace. Women in terms of class and qualifications, they are more at a lower level. If when you come back, and the last thing in terms of the affirmative action, when I was still at a workplace, there was what we were always encouraged to there were courses that were there at the workplace, and workers were encouraged. And this issue of recognition of prior learning, is it exercised in a manner that a worker at a lower level is then able to be identified that no. As much as I'm making an example about the sector that I am from, as much as she is a general assistant, but she is able to do one if there is people used to say it's the simplest thing though. Pick up a phone. If the phone is ringing in the department, pick up a phone and answer, and then be able to say, sister, this is what this phone was about this. When there is an order that is coming from a particular a unit, whether it's groceries, let alone medicines, whether it's workshop, and you are able to pick up that, as much as she's a general assistant, but she has got that potential of being encouraged to study, or you take that person to another division in the work. I don't know whether that falls within your mandate, or in as much as it is not falling within your mandate, you are then able to identify that and then advise a commission that is to be dealing with that. My observation, which I may be wrong, and it happens everywhere, is that in South Africa we have encouraged a system where there is no interaction of departments. Departments work. Education is also concerned about education. I'm just making an example. They are not concerned on what is happening in Department of Health, whereas there are children that may have some conditions that will need, which as educators, they don't have those expertise. Now, the public we have been working in isolated. It's about this department. The other department is not worried about that. As a result, there are issues that we miss. So commissions of this nature, in my understanding, which I'm saying I'm subject to correction, is that they must also go beyond their mandate and advise, and then make us aware. You are not reporting, but you make us aware that in fact, if issues are in this manner in an ex-department, Parliament must then be able, a relevant department, and portfolio, because that is also our responsibility. When we pick up some of these issues, we will then go to a relevant portfolio and say, this is what we have been exposed to. I'm making an example now by the Public Service Commission. What is your take? So when you are coming back, we will appreciate if you can